Have you heard about the idea of getting in 10,000 steps per day? The reality is that most people are doing it wrong and they have no idea why they should be doing it in the first place. In today's podcast, Julie and I discuss this idea of 10,000 steps, why it's good, why we're being misled about it, and how you should actually go about doing it. We're going to cue the intro song and then we're going to dive right into this conversation. Welcome to the Exercise is Health podcast, where we're talking about exercise, health, and the interconnectedness of the two. We are your hosts, Charlie
and Julie,
and we will be coming to you every single week from our studio, Muscle Activation Schaumburg. Hey, welcome back, everybody, to the Exercise is Health podcast. We are your hosts, Charlie
and Julie,
and we're coming to you from our studio, Muscle Activation Schaumburg in Schaumburg, Illinois. Now, at Muscle Activation Schaumburg, we believe your health is your most valuable asset. Your health is one of the biggest influencers of the quality and quantity of time that you have. And while there are many aspects of health, our expertise is exercise. Exercise has been proven time and again to not only increase your longevity, but improve your quality of life. And it is our belief that exercise is the number one best thing that you can do to build, maintain, and protect your most valuable asset, which is your health, and specifically exercise that is geared towards building and maintaining the health and function of your muscles. Now, today, we are going to be talking about an exercise-related topic, and this is something that is pretty popular right now. I would say I maybe heard about it more, say like 3 to 5 years ago, but definitely it's still out there, and it's this idea of like getting your steps in every day, and specifically this whole idea of 10,000 steps. So we want to discuss this idea of 10,000 steps. What's the point of it? Why would it be even worth your while to try to get in 10,000 steps? And what the heck is it going to do for your health?
I love this question because I think that I used to be the 10,000 step plus queen because, 10,000 steps is the, number you got to hit. Actually, I lived here in Illinois for 8 years. So probably for about 2 years before I moved here. So about 10 years ago, I would be a chronic jogger, meaning I would jog every single day for 45 minutes. I would just get out of my bed, put my clothes on and put my fitness tracker on because mostly I jogged to get the steps and the calorie burn. And then I would continue on with my day. So I was definitely a hardcore follower of the 10,000 step rule. I would march in place, do steps up and down my stairs just to get them in. And I would do everything I could possible to make sure I got the 10,000 steps in. And then finally, I decided to just cave and just knock it out of the park within the first 45 minutes that I was even awake in the day. And that's how I started jogging in the morning because I was like, if this is the optimal health measure, getting 10,000 steps in, I might as well wake up at 6, which by the way, you guys know I don't wake up at 6, and go ahead and get in my 10,000 steps in the first, hour of my day. And then I would just be baller for the rest of the day. So this is definitely something that I participated in. I not only tracked my steps, I also was crazy about tracking my calories, but we are just talking about steps today. I also have to share that during that time, I probably moved the most, stepped the most. I also was very active throughout the day, and I was probably the least healthy, the least healthiest? I was the least healthy that I've ever been in my whole life, those 2 years. Physically, by far. Mentally, emotionally, I think it kind of consumed everything I thought about health. And I think a combination of those two were really not great. And anyone looking at me would say I was healthy, but internally I was definitely not healthy. And I think that you can participate in the 10,000 steps per day event and be healthy about it. But I also think that it can be taken to the extreme, kind of how I did and how I see a lot of people doing it, and it not be very healthy. So I love that we're going to talk about this today because I feel like I've participated hardcore for a few years and have learned a lot from it, pros and cons.
Yeah, the 10,000 steps a day was something that I had heard about for a while, but I had never really mattered that much to me until, like you were saying, Julie, I got my first fitness tracker. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, wait a second. Now all of a sudden I have some way to measure whether or not I'm hitting this marker of 10,000 steps. And I definitely remember that once I got that fitness tracker, I would check that thing so many times throughout the day. How many steps am I at? Oh, how many steps am I at now? Wait a second, I'm pushing the cart at Costco, but it's not counting my steps. Well, this is a ripoff. Like I need a new fitness tracker, or I need to only push with one arm so I can swing my other arm and get my steps. I remember it definitely feeling that way about it as well. And what's interesting is, ever since I stopped wearing my fitness tracker, again, like I don't think about it that much. It rarely ever crosses my mind. A lot of people do ask, okay, well, like how many steps do you get in during the day? Not as a way of saying, are you getting your steps in? But, if you know our work, and especially on the muscle activation technique side of things, we're walking around a table for an entire hour at a time. And when you're doing that all day, you're going to get a lot of steps in. So I know I get a lot of steps in. I'm certain that I get more than 10,000 steps a day in. I don't know exactly how many I get in, but I definitely remember that feeling when I got my first fitness tracker of all of a sudden it became something, because I could measure it. It became something that I had to measure. It became a marker that I had to hit. And I remember there were days where I felt like, oh, you know what? My steps are a little bit low. I got to get up and I got to walk until I hit this step goal. And I mean, even we were watching a show, a week or two back, and, remember the guy knocked over the vase because he was running, trying to get his steps in before midnight hit so he could close his loop. Like, people do this. This is not just like a me and you thing. This is very common. Like, oh, I got to get my steps in, I'm brushing my teeth. Okay, I'm going to march in place. And I think that mindset has really misled us of what the entire point of getting the steps in is in the first place.
Okay, so let's talk about so if you are doing 10,000 steps a day, that means that you are probably most definitely wearing a fitness tracker, because I don't know anyone that's going to count their steps all day long. So there's this number. So you're wearing a fitness tracker. Let's talk about some of the good stuff that comes from this, because there is a lot of good stuff. Oh, by the way, when I did hear about this, I was like, I wonder if there's actually like anything that's like proven, like the 10,000 steps is some benchmark of goodness or of health or whatever. So anyways, I did once look up, some kind of random Google article, and I actually just tried to re-look it up right now just to share it with you guys, which I couldn't find it. But anyways, it was sharing just about how people that are more likely to have 10,000 steps per day were less likely to develop chronic diseases such as heart disease, insulin resistance, the whole thing that we know that America struggles with, which is just the chronic diseases that impede on our health. So the positive thing about doing 10,000 steps a day, or aiming to have 10,000 steps a day, is it's an amazing accountability thingy to tell you to move. Like, reminds you, hey, I need to be remembering to move throughout the day. Like, every time you look at your watch, oh man, you're only at 3,000 steps. You better get up and do something. And it's really kind of a little bit of a hit to our mental emotional state when we sit back down and we're like, ooh, I just got 500 more steps, which is cool. It kind of makes fitness and moving around kind of a game, which is cool. And some people love that. Like, that kind of accountability helps people move throughout the day in and day out. And you know what? Moving throughout your day is crucial to your health. So if wearing a fitness tracker and aiming to get 10,000 steps a day helps you do this and gets you excited to do it and gets you motivated and gets you some accountability, and some fitness trackers you can share with friends. So, your friends can be like, hey bro, you're only like 2,000 steps. You got a long way to go. That's cool. And I love that it gets people moving. So if wearing a fitness tracking, getting to 10,000 steps makes you move throughout the day, when you wouldn't have otherwise, makes you think about it, reminds you to do it, gets you accountability, then I love that, because that right there is a huge piece and literally could save your life because you've moved throughout the day consistently versus not.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, without question, there's a tremendous amount of value to being physically active throughout your day. And having a device that measures your physical activity in the form of steps, that's a really useful tool and a really easy thing to measure to show that you have been physically active throughout the day. And I think, like you're saying, Julie, that is I'm not going to even say one of, I'm going to say like the top benefit of it is it shows you objectively how much you've moved throughout your day. And okay, yes, there are other ways to get movement in that don't involve taking steps. So, that can, I mean, if you are standing in place and waving your arms around or whatever. That being said, for the majority of us and the majority of activities, our physical activity is going to involve getting some kind of steps in. So it tends to be a relatively accurate picture of how physically active you've been. That's really, really, really important because, I mean, let's be honest, every single one of us overestimates ourselves in one way or another. And a lot of times we overestimate how physically active we actually are throughout the day. So this is a great way to not only objectively measure it, but also kind of hold yourself accountable. So you don't get to sit back and say, oh yeah, man, I'm so exhausted today. I've just been so busy. I've been moving around all day. And then you look at your steps and you're like, 1,200 steps? Really? Like you don't get to use that as an excuse anymore because you have objective data that tells you, no, actually, this is how active you've been. I know you feel like you've been this active, but you've actually been this active. So that's really important. There's the accountability, there's a measurement. And to me, where that creates a lot of value is when you get to track that over time, when you get to see, okay, yes, I am hitting this number of steps today, but relative to yesterday, relative to last week, relative to last year, it is more steps I normally hit. It is less steps than I normally hit. It is, right on par with the number of steps I normally hit. So you get to see changes and track changes over time. And to me, there's a ton of value in that as well.
One thing that I see definitely with the tracking piece is that, to add on to what Charlie said, that's really cool, is that you can also incrementally increase your activity. So here at MAS, we do often see people that might experience discomfort when they exercise. And one of the things is when they start increasing movement, sometimes that can make them feel a lot better. Sometimes that can make them feel a bit worse, especially walking seems to be an activity that's not agreeable for everyone. But anyways, it's a great way to say, okay, so right now you average, 1,200 steps a day. Let's see if we can't get that to 2,000 steps. And oftentimes it's a great way to start building up your activity without saying, right now you're at 1,200. Let's get to 10,000 tomorrow. That's like a really big jump. So anyways, that kind of tracking is really cool because it really, like as Charlie said, it gives you the honest truth about how many steps you took that day, which as humans, a big way that we move is by stepping and walking. It's not all the ways that we move, especially if you participate in resistance training or cycling or something like that, that won't count for steps, but is a huge activity. But most of the time when we're moving throughout the day, it is through stepping. So that physical number reminder is a great reality check. Now, that physical number of 10,000 steps, as I kind of shared in my story to begin with, can have its drawbacks. Number one, I think that we can get really, really tied up in the idea that 10,000 steps means something. Or maybe your goal is 8,000 steps. 8,000 steps means something. Now, it means exactly what it means. It means that you got 10,000 steps or 8,000 steps. But that is not an image of how much health improvement you got throughout the day. It is a picture of something, but it's not necessarily how much improvement of health that you got throughout the day, how much quality of movement you got throughout the day, or how much appropriate movement, which we talk about a lot on this podcast, is the appropriateness of movement that you got throughout the day. And so I think that's where a huge part of the drawback comes, because it is a physical measurement that we've now labeled as something good. Usually it's something good. We've labeled it as something to achieve or something good or something definitely external to attain each day. And that has its serious drawbacks, especially when we're thinking about exercising to improve our quality of health versus exercising to attain 10,000 steps. But we could really attain 10,000 steps with any other activity that is not your health. For example, exercise to be able to complete a 5K, exercise to be able to do a marathon, exercise to be able to participate in a triathlon. Those are all external goals. Whereas if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably thinking, man, I want to exercise to improve the quality of my health, which 10,000 steps or however many your step goal is can participate in that, but it is not going to dictate that.
Now, Julie, I want to go back to something that you brought up at the beginning of that, and it's really, really, really important for people to understand. I want to combine it with something you said even a little bit earlier. One is the idea of, hey, maybe 10,000 steps is a day is a little bit out of your body's comfort zone right now, and not saying like comfort zone in terms of, mentally comfortable, but I'm saying comfort zone in terms of like what your body can physically tolerate. And then combining that with the idea of appropriate movement. See, the issue that gets brought up when we start talking about 10,000 steps is when it's thrown out as a measure or a marker of health, then all of a sudden it becomes something that too many people strive to hit. And that's a problem. And it's a problem not from the physical activity standpoint, but from a can your body tolerate this standpoint, okay? Like imagine instead of saying 10,000 steps, say, okay, you know what? The marker for health is actually to run 5 miles every day. Okay, like I'm not saying you should do that, but let's say we just substituted that. Okay, so the marker of health now becomes running 5 miles every day. Well, how many of us would try to run 5 miles and then within a really short period of time of trying to do that every single day, realize that, hey, you know what? This isn't feeling that good for my body. My body's not tolerating it. I'm starting to get plantar fasciitis. My knees are hurting me. My back is bugging me. Okay. Those same issues hold true with the idea of saying 10,000 steps or saying anything else that you can, like Julie was saying, substitute for the 10,000 steps. Okay. So where I'm going with this is just because somebody says, or, in online publication says, okay, aim for 10,000 steps or however many steps a day, doesn't mean that's actually right for your body. What you need to take away from it is aim for physical activity throughout the day. And so where we'll go to in this podcast is, okay, what the value of 10,000 steps actually is and how you can then substitute that with any kind of physical activity. But I do want to put that in there because I think it's really important to understand that if you are all about tracking your steps, but for whatever reason, like your knees bugging you, your feet are bugging you, your hip or your back or anywhere in your body bugs you, and it seems to flare up the more physical activity you do, especially walking or some kind of step-related activity, then stop trying to get your 10,000 steps. Because at the end of the day, the only way you're going to be able to remain physically active is if it doesn't hurt to do so. So first and foremost, you need to find a way that doesn't bother your body, that doesn't flare your body up to be physically active. And then from there, you can start building upon that, knowing that 10,000 steps doesn't actually matter. What matters is that you're being physically active.
Now, Charlie, that's a perfect lead into where I was going to go next. Like you're reading my brain. So back to me 10 years ago when I was running to get in my steps every day. I don't know if I didn't share this, but this is in another podcast. I had severe plantar fasciitis and I would ignore this fasciitis, and any fasciitis sufferer, like, how do you ignore that? Trust me, you figure out ways. When 10,000 steps and getting a certain calorie burn in was the marker of fitness and health, I found ways to get around that plantar fasciitis. My brain now knows that was a sign that my body could not tolerate jogging 45 minutes every single morning. So this was a really good example of me valuing getting that external achievement of, my 10,000 steps in sacrifice for the function of my body. If you're doing any activity and it hurts you or it flares up an issue that you're already experiencing, there's a very high chance that you should not be doing that exercise, whether it is just for the length of time that you're doing it, for the range that you're doing it, for the distance that you're doing it. There's some quality of that exercise that is not tolerated by your body. And that is a big sign for you to stop doing that, or for you to change how you're doing that. And reason being is because exercise is only as valuable as what you can return to, meaning that one workout can't cancel out the rest of your workouts for the rest of the week, because your one workout that you do Monday that injures you and takes you out for Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, it would have been healthier for you to do half the workout, a quarter of the workout on Monday, and been able to participate Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So I was in your shoes if you're listening to this saying, this is me, I'm working out, or I'm getting my 10,000 steps, but it is killing my knees, or it's hurting my fasciitis. It did a lot more things to me than just bother my mechanics, which is what Charlie and I specialize in. I think it led to some like chronic fatigue that I had going on. But anyways, if you are exercising, especially with external goals like 10,000 steps or running a 5K, that is one of the biggest downfalls, is that we love that we can track it. We love that we can feel like an accomplishment at the end of the day. We love that, our app gives us a gold star or something, or we can share with our friends, I did 1 month straight of 10,000 steps. But we have to also acknowledge that you're a whole human, and some days or every day, that exercise or that amount of steppage is not going to be appropriate for your body.
So if you're listening to this and you're thinking, okay, so I've been hearing that I need to get my 10,000 steps in, but every time I do, it bothers my knees, it bothers my feet, it bothers my back. And now you're telling me that I shouldn't be getting those steps in. What is the reason for getting the steps in the first place if at the end of the day, it's not something that's completely necessary? And that's a great question. All right. So let's start off with this. In my personal opinion, the value of getting in 10,000 steps is not actually getting in the 10,000 steps. Okay, the actual number of steps is of little to no value. What's valuable about getting in the 10,000 steps is the amount of time that you have to be physically active to get the 10,000 steps in. All right, and this is where people screw up using their fitness trackers. This is where they completely screw up using their fitness trackers when it comes to counting their steps. All right, let me explain. The value of getting in 10,000 steps is not for you to go for a 60-minute run in the morning and say, oh, good, I got 7,500 steps in, so now the rest of the day I only have 2,500 more steps to go. That's the wrong way to go about using your fitness tracker. I know you might be thinking, what do you mean? There's a right way and yes, there's a right way and a wrong way in this context. That's the wrong way. The right way is to completely disregard the number of steps you get in during your 60-minute workout, because quite frankly, that doesn't matter in terms of what the value of 10,000 steps is. The value of getting 10,000 steps is to force you to be physically active throughout your entire day, not for one large chunk of time during one section of your day, but force you to be physically active at varying intervals throughout your day. So the most important thing about the 10,000 steps is not that you're getting it in, but it's how you're getting it in. Are you getting your 10,000 steps in, the majority in one large chunk, and then the rest just kind of sprinkled in throughout their day? Or are you doing, 10 to 15 minutes here and 10 to 15 minutes there, and it's broken up throughout your day? From a steps perspective, the latter is going to be far more valuable in terms of improving your health, in terms of improving your physical function, improving your ability to combat chronic disease and illness, specifically combating insulin resistance. That really, in my opinion, is the only value in counting the number of steps that you get. It does not matter how many steps you get in during your workout. It is extremely important that you're being physically active throughout the rest of your day, and that's where counting your steps actually matters.
So if we thought about the people, or if you're like, I'm a 10,000 step per day person, I want you to change your mindset to, okay, this is a principle, this is a concept, and a more accurate way to describe this concept would not be, I wouldn't choose it to be the 10,000 step per day principle. I would say it's a move throughout the day principle, which if you've listened to our podcast, what Charlie and I usually call that is all the time exercise. There is so much value that is quite honestly undervalued by most people in moving throughout your day, meaning after 30 minutes of being seated, you get up and move for 5 minutes. After an hour of being seated, you get up and move for 10 minutes. And you do that all day long. And as Charlie said, it has to be exclusive, different. And it's almost a different category than your regular quote unquote workouts. You know those workouts you go to the gym for, you change your clothes for, you get sweaty. It's usually like an hour or less, 30 minutes maybe. Those are very valuable for different reasons, but this 10,000 a day step principle that we're replacing as the name of all the time exercise principle is important in its own way. And I think that people that are participating in trying to get 10,000 steps a day are more likely to move throughout their day, which is a really good thing. But we have to acknowledge that really the whole goal is to move throughout your day, not necessarily hit 10,000 steps. So I forget what tracker this is. Maybe it's the Apple Watch or what. It doesn't really matter. But anyways, it buzzes at you, like it buzzes on your wrist when you've been stationary for too long. That is the principle. I don't care when you get up how many steps you got during that time, but the whole principle is that, hey, you haven't moved your body in 30 minutes, it's time to get up and move. I love that. And if we could just stick to that, that would be the principle that we're going for. So some really simple ways to change and reframe your brain around this 10,000 step goal would be thinking of, okay, well, how can I implement into my day different ways to move that aren't like quote unquote gym clothes exercise time, but is movement. So different things like this. Walk to go get your mail, especially if you have a long driveway and you normally stop your car on the way up and you grab it. Like I know that my grandparents do that. They have a really long, tall hill. They're like 90 now, so I feel like, they're allowed to do that. But if you're not 90, that would be a great way for you to get in, just a bout of movement that's not really quote unquote exercise. Another great way is my favorite way is to drink a lot of water. So then you're forced, due to bladder size, to get up and use the restroom and refill your water throughout the day. Charlie, I know, likes to set timers, and timers are really cool because it's like, okay, I'm going to focus on my work. I'm going to be seated. I'm going to be focused. But it's only 25 minutes and I know I can get a lot done in that time. And then for 5 minutes, I'll get up and move. Another great way is a lot of you guys probably work at an office, walk to lunch. Usually if you have an office, there are lunch places close by. You can walk. That's a great way just to move throughout your day again. Another great way is to park a little bit further away from the entrance of your store or your destination and get a little bit of extra movement.
Yes, each of those tips is huge. I mean, look, you want to talk about improving your health, improving your longevity, improving your overall well-being. Getting yourself moving throughout the day is a giant component of that. And so doing the little things that Julie was talking about, whether it's walking to get your mail, walking to lunch, walking around your office every 25 to 50 minutes, making yourself drink water, which is going to hydrate you and then force you to use the bathroom, so you have to get up and move. 2 birds, 1 stone. All of those things are going to serve you in the way that getting the 10,000 steps a day should. And then from there, if you're able to track your steps, then that also means that you're able to look back and see, just kind of generally speaking, how many steps you have been getting. And like Julie brought up earlier, set a goal for yourself to say, over the next month, see if you can increase your steps by, 250 to 500 steps a day. Whether that's anywhere from 2 to 5%. It may not seem like a whole bunch, but guess what? You start doing that day after day after day, and it adds up, not from a calorie burn perspective, not because it's going to get you, into phenomenal physical condition, but it's going to force you to be more conscious about moving throughout your day. And really, at the end of the day, that is the whole entire point of getting the 10,000 steps in. Moving throughout your day, and it starts with being conscious about moving throughout your day. So if you'd like more guidance on how to be doing this, as well as how to incorporate this kind of movement with your regularly scheduled workouts that you do, whether it's resistance training or cardio or group classes or whatever, we have something for you. It's called the One Workout Away Challenge. Now, we have one starting up super soon. Sunday, February 14th is our next start date for the One Workout Away Challenge. And it will run until Saturday, March 13th. So for less than $1 a day, you will get guidance from myself and from Julie on how to use exercise to build the health and function of your body. Because it's our belief that you are just one workout away from feeling stronger, from living healthier, and from functioning better. And over the course of 28 days, we want to teach you how. So to learn more and sign up today, go to owa.matschaumburg.com. So who do you know that needs to hear this episode? Who do you know that is really into getting their 10,000 steps a day in? Or who's sitting there thinking, what's the point of getting these steps in? I'm not burning that many calories. I'm not getting into great physical condition doing it. Share this episode with them so they can learn the actual purpose behind getting in those 10,000 steps a day and how not to get in those 10,000 steps a day. And while you're online, if you wouldn't mind, head on over to iTunes and leave us a rating and review. It helps people find this podcast when they're looking for information on exercise and when they're looking for information on health. So if you found value in this conversation today, let us know by leaving us that 5-star rating and review. Well, thanks so much for tuning in. We always appreciate it. Have a fantastic week, and we'll talk with you all next week. Hey there, it's Charlie again. One last thing. I want to let you in on a secret project that I've been working on for quite some time now. I am planning on releasing a book by the middle of summer 2021. But here's the thing, because I'm self-publishing this book, there's only going to be a limited number of copies available at any given time. So to learn more about this book and to be one of the first to find out when this book actually gets released, what I need you to do is go to exerciseforlifemethod.com. There you'll find out more information as well as some exclusive bonuses that I'm offering just for simply staying in the loop with what's going on with this book. So to learn more and claim your bonuses, go to exerciseforlifemethod.com, enter in your information, and you'll be automatically kept up to date. Learn all about the book and bonuses at exerciseforlifemethod.com.